My name is Andrea Riddell, Drea. I usually go by Drea, so everything it says Drea, not Andrea. I am a mental health provider. I have a private practice called Uniquely You Counseling, where I serve clients of color, people who suffer from addiction, and those who want to work on self-esteem. I'm also an adjunct professor over at Lewis and Clark, and I do some group therapy here and there. I'm a Portland native, Cleveland High School. There's only one of us, probably. Woo! Thank you.
Portland natives.
Whoa!
My name is Christopher Scott, and I'm a therapist. Also, I work for the Portland Public School District. I also have a podcast called Hip Hop Social Worker. And I just do a whole lot of stuff regarding mental health.
Hey, my name is Zadora Williams, and I'm a clinical social worker. I provide mental health services to children and families out of my private practice at Kofa Center for Healing, as well as I also do shifts at the Adolescent Psych Unit at Unity. So if you see me around or see me in the schools, I also work with the kids at school, trying to get our community to definitely be well. All right?
Peace, y'all. My name is Umoja. I'm a therapist as well, a therapist and alcohol and drug counselor. I work for a cultural specific program called the Imani Center. It's through Central City Concerns, downtown Portland. Culture specific for black people, just to be clear. I also do community organizing with a local group called Black Community of Portland. Y'all can look that up. There's a lot of good things going on there. That's it. Peace.
I'm also a Portland native too. My name is Ramon Benton. I'm also a social worker and therapist at a psychiatric adult hospital. I also do contract work with Horizon Counseling Services. So I go into the school district and provide mental health for middle school kids and high school kids who are African American.
Thank you all for being here. So the first question is, with the upcoming election, many people become easily triggered. Can you discuss the intersection of mental health and politics, along with a little bit about how you maintain your sanity while fighting oppressive systems day in and day out? And for the audience, if you're just trying to remember the questions, we have them all here.
I'll go. All right. Don't ask me first. So in particular, when I think about how mental health and politics intersect, it takes me back to when I was working community mental health right after the election. And I think what happened in particular for my clients and what happened for me is there's like this sense of control and this loss of control. And I think for a lot of my clients and for me, what happened was I think we want to believe sometimes we live in like this just world, and like when I work hard and I do the things I'm supposed to, things will work. And in particular, I was working in addiction treatment at that time. That's kind of what you teach, right? You work the program, you do what you're supposed to do, and you get better. And I think what happened at that time is clients and I started to question things like, but I did the right thing. I did what I was supposed to. I voted. The people I love voted. I'm confused why this isn't working. And I think for my clients, what I have to remind them is we believe, and I think to make ourselves feel better, we believe that if we do the right thing and we pull ourselves up by our bootstraps, we work really hard, we put that 60 hours in that week, life's gonna work. And I think in particular with the election, what happened is it shattered that for a lot of my clients, and it made them think about themselves. You know, but you said if I go to meetings, you said if I go to therapy, you said if I did these things, I'd stay sober. And for a lot of my clients, that represented in their own treatment and it represented in their own mental health. So I think that the intersection of politics and mental health is there and it's present, but I think sometimes we just don't want to talk about it. And for a lot of my clients, they came into a therapy session and were like, I'm upset. I feel like I'm not being seen, I'm not being heard, and nobody's talking about it. And so I just try to offer space to talk about it. And it's okay to be angry. It's okay to be mad. We can sit here for 50 minutes and be mad. But that's what you like to spend your time on.
So I work, like I said, I work in schools, and I see a lot of anxiety, you know, especially when you have students that are worried about their families, you know, being separated. And I see a lot of anxiety and depression, and I also see a lot of pushback, you know, from like white students, you know, who just say, well, this is kind of how it is, but, you know, but they're not really trying to listen to the people who are having the effect of like losing family members and worried about, well, if I go to school, will like, you know, will the officer be there to take me away and things like that. So I definitely see like the rise of anxiety. A lot of people just don't want to even deal with life because, you know, like there's no safe space for them. So like I do feel like in this climate, it's created a lot of hostility, and the safe spaces are getting smaller.
When I think of mental health and politics, it's really deep because politics is what has led to a lot of increase in mental health issues in our communities. When you talk about zoning, when you talk about how our communities will have 3 fast food restaurants on the same block radius, but that's against different zoning violations. So it looks all too much for me like a setup. And that's how I feel when it comes to politics and how it affects our communities, because I am from a generation where you grow up and you just see a lot of harm being done via politics. That's their game. So unfortunately, with the last election, I saw a lot of trauma coming back. People are like, okay, where are we going? Times are about to go back to how they used to be. We're not safe. So a lot of PTSD, a lot of people that are struggling to know where's going to be my safe space here, especially in Portland. Where am I going to find solitude? Are my kids going to get taken away? So just seeing how detrimental, you know, politics and how it just increases the symptoms that some of our people are already experiencing, as well as how it can be good if we need our people in systems and in politics to really create laws and policies that counter what is being done in our environment and in our communities. One thing that I do when dealing with all of that and also helping my people is like, hey, we got to make our small communities. We have to wrap around each other and create that safety. What does that look like? Sometimes it may look like, hey, we're going to all gather together and we're going to make sure our kids are safe. We're going to make sure that we're making sure that our kids feel comfortable and countering against the things that's going on at school when kids are ridiculing them or saying, oh, you're what doesn't make us great. You're the reason why we're going to make America great. You know, these are the type of negative things and racist things that our children are hearing. So countering and also just trying to change that narrative and also show that we can create some type of safety, because our overarching safety is always compromised and it always seems to be at the hands of government and politics.
Thank you. So that was actually a great segue into the next question. Just for purposes of time, I'm going to move through the questions. So you mentioned bringing your children together and the community together. So the next question is, how do we actually get people of color to show up and seek treatment? And the youth as well.
I don't like going first. Seriously, and since we going around, I'm gonna act like I didn't.
I mean,
since I
it's
didn't
not
answer
really
the
about
other one. Right. It's something I picked up in school. I was always first raising my hand, first volunteer. Try not to, but I think making it less of a taboo, trying to take away the stigma of it and educating ourselves on it. And what's fascinating with mental health and being black is that like our baseline of mental health, I was just talking to somebody about this, is like a 5 just for being black in America, in this world. Like everything from anxiety to depression to even the more severe ones like severe PTSD or even schizophrenia, depending on what part of the country you're at. You walk out your house, you wake up in the morning, turn the TV as a black person, your mental health is already bam, 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 bam. So helping our people understand that part Like it's not, when we say mental health, some people just think like, nah, I don't need no pill, nah, I don't talk to myself, or we think that bipolar is when you just get in a bad mood because somebody says something that's ignorant. That's not bipolar, you just irritated, right? And then you feel better because that person has disappeared. It's not bipolar. but this is what we think of when we think of bipolar, right? Somebody get mad, oh, you're bipolar, right? We don't even understand what mental health is, and more importantly, we don't understand how our blackness alone, our mental health is just already triggered, like off top. I hope we all understand that. So just talking about that more, really, and just making it more of an okay thing to talk about.
And I just want to acknowledge, at each event, I always try to find black male therapists, and it's always a struggle. So to have 3 black male therapists up here, and this was actually a 3-part question. So I just want to acknowledge that. The first part was, how do we engage black men in therapy? And since we have 3 black men up here who are in this field, I want to make sure it's kind of the threefold. So black men, people of color, the youth, to engage in this process. And thank you for that. That was really good.
How do we engage black men in therapy? First, I would say it's like a therapy education. A lot of us aren't educated well enough to know the difference between mental health and mental illness. And that's something that we struggle with. There's not enough promotion of mental health in different sectors as well too, regarding education, regarding even mental health sectors. I mean, just anywhere in general. It's, I guess, a hard discussion to talk about sometimes because not everyone is, wanting to, come forth about their own mental health. And so we need to, make that, or we need to promote it and make it normalized and not so much taboo, so people can feel comfortable and vulnerable about talking about these issues, so they won't feel as if it's a stigmatism type discussion.
All right.
Can I say one more thing about the
Yeah,
men
you sure
though?
can.
I think that us men actually do get therapy, we just seek it in unhealthy ways. I think when we get together, like, hey, you got up on this bag? Hey, I got a bottle, and then we come through and we just get to shoot the shit, right? And we just talk about, and if you got really, and I think that a lot of us don't have friends and comrades who we close enough to because of our trust issues and because of our trauma and because of our mental health. We don't even have those people that we have the relationships with where I can say, hey, and I'm tripping, man, I done did this, I don't know how to tell my lady, I don't know, right? This is therapeutic, this is healthy conversations that you have with people. This is stuff that healthy people do, so they don't need to go to therapy that much, right? So I think we just have unhealthy outlets. It's over beer and blood, instead of just sitting down watching, and just talking with your buddy.
Yeah, so I think really, like they were saying, we just need more awareness, you know what I'm saying? We need more education about what therapy actually is, and we really need patience. I know, like, me just starting, you know what I'm saying, to get into my practice, I'm really like, I have to slow myself down and think that, every session doesn't have to be something that's like, just like, great. And, so like, just like have patience to like, if there's a guy who wants to come in there and just sit and talk for, 45 minutes and don't really touch the case plan, then, like that should be, that should be all right. You know what I'm saying? Because like if we're too heavy on like, fixing the problem, I know that scares us away. So like fixing what? I don't need to be fixed. So really just patience. And just, there's more awareness, more events like this, more people like us just sitting here and having conversations about what mental health is. It is hard to be a person of color in this country, so, and it really just let them know that you're not alone, even though I'm educated, I say that with air quotes, but, I have the same stuff going on, I can't run from being black, so that's just patience, awareness, and yeah, education.
That's actually one of the first things so many of my clients come to me. Ashley, fix me. Well, first off, you're not even broken. It's just, I help you to navigate all the pieces that you've been given. The next question we have is, many of us tuned into Surviving R. Kelly. Let's talk sexual trauma and some of the long-term impacts as this slide's messed up.
1 in 5.
1 in 5 girls and 1 in 20 boys is a victim of childhood sexual abuse. How does childhood sexual abuse affect adult well-being, And what does surviving R. Kelly teach us, if anything?
So, oh, you
No?
I'm gonna jump in on this one. I'm from the Chi, y'all, so her deep. I couldn't watch that just because I censor what I take in for my own mental health, and I just could not take in no more trauma, no more harm being done to kids, nothing. So I really censor myself as much as I can when it comes to what I watch and what's going on. When it comes to sexual abuse, and I'm gonna say specifically in Black families, yo, it's terrible. It's terrible because we don't talk about it. It's terrible because, I'm sorry, but some of our parents, some of them will, but a lot of us do not even have real conversations about what sex is and what consent is. So that's where we go wrong starting off, is we're not educating our children on what that is and what healthy sex looks like. So when you don't have that and you get to a place where you're experiencing normal hormonal changes and urges, and then you act out on them and then land yourself in a situation that could be detrimental where you're maybe sexually abusing a cousin, or your older cousin is touching on you or doing things because they don't know. They don't know. They don't understand, and nobody's talking about it. Then it just leads to a lifelong of sexual trauma as well as unhealthy relationships, because then you become an adult and you still don't know, because college ain't teach us either. I'm sorry, they didn't teach you really about sex or high school. You have to go out and learn things on your own. And unfortunately, when you think about sexual abuse and how it affects you learning, because you're walking around with some people can still feel that person on top of them. It's a physical thing. It's a multiple level. It's not just your mental. It's not just the physical act. It's about how it carries in your body. And that is something that sticks with a lot of the kids I work with, and as well as a lot of adults that I work with. And it's not something that you can scrub off, even though many of them try. It's not something you can scrub off. So when it comes to, I can't speak to the survivor R. Kelly piece, but when it comes to trying to heal, I think it takes multiple levels, and it can take years of doing the same thing, of sometimes narrative therapy, sometimes writing it out before you can actually express it to someone. Just sitting and processing, but having a safe space to do so, as well as being okay to come out and say, as I was just watching Common, who just talked about being sexually abused as a child by a man. That's something that men don't speak out about. You don't speak out about men being molested or sexually abused by other men. That's a big trauma to just walk around with and then expect to go and live a normal life, have a healthy relationship, have a healthy friendship. It's like everything contributes, just a touch. So it comes with healing your mind, healing your body, and sometimes confrontation. Sometimes we have to confront the protectors in our family that do know and did allow those things to happen, accountability. And sometimes you have to confront your abuser for your own way to move forward. So those are some of the things that I feel are necessary when it comes to the topic of sexual abuse and how it goes down in our communities. We need education, lots of it.
Thank you. That was a great response. So I encourage all the mamas, all the fathers to definitely have conversations with your children.
Yeah.
Next question. So this is specifically for you, the hip hop social worker up in here. But other people can answer this as well. Jay-Z uses the title Family Feud in one of his tracks as a multifaceted analogy of his wife and children, along with the current climate of hip-hop in the Black community. Nobody wins when the family feuds. We all screw because we never had the tools. I'm trying to fix you. So how can hip-hop aid in fixing us, and how much would you say hip-hop has helped or hurt in impacting our sanity?
I think it can help because it's art and it's just a way to express yourself. But what I think it hurt us when, you know, when all these rappers got rich, you know, and like, you know, saying the media really portrays what a rapper is supposed to look like and what he's supposed to do and what, you know what I'm saying, and what, and like the toxic lifestyle of smoking all the time, drinking all the time, you know, being a hoe, you know what I'm saying, you know, as a man, you know what I'm saying, you know, just sleeping with a whole bunch of women, that kind of stuff. So I feel like that kind of, you know, like, it left the true, it left the true, you know, true meaning in hip hop, you know what I'm saying, which was, you know, like it really supposed to be helpful to us, you know, to build communities and not really tear us down. But when everybody got rich, it's kind of like, well, this is what's gonna make the money, you know what I'm saying? Like I know, like me talking about the positive stuff is tight, but if I can make $10 million talking about some negative stuff, then I mean, who ain't gonna do that? Especially when you're 20 years old, you know, so I feel like it's helpful, and like the rappers like, you know, Hova and J. Cole, and you know, like and those kind of rappers are bringing it back to the essence, you know what I'm saying? I know he talks about therapy a lot, and that's helpful because, you know, he's still at the, you know, the top, you know what I'm saying? So like if there's a rapper at the top, you know what I'm saying, that's still really, and he's being so open and honest about, you know, his mom, you know, his relationship with his wife, he cheated on her. You know what I'm saying? And he's really saying that, you know what I'm saying, he lost it all. You know what I'm saying? I mean, he cheated on Beyonce. You feel me? You know what I'm saying? And it's like, you know, he had to come with a whole album.
Do we really know that?
Yes.
Yes, we do know that. But you know, he made a whole album really of just, you know, just really manning up. You know what I'm saying? Really showing what it is to be a grown man, owning in this, yeah. So I feel like it's helpful, you know, but I do think there's negative impact, but the negative impact is just, you know, it really preys on our, you know, like on our anxiety and our depression and stuff, because, you know, like, you know, you do things in access, and that really says that, you know, you're trying to fill a void. You know what I'm saying? Like trying to feel something, like, you know what I'm saying, being drunk all the time, being high all the time, being around a whole bunch of just people all the time, you know what I'm saying? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like you're hurt and you need help, you know what I'm saying? So that's what I feel about hip hop.
That's interesting that you brought up money, because Nipsey Hussle was a rapper who used his money to give back to the community, a community that killed him right outside his storefront. So how do you think money can be used in a positive aspect? And right now I'm seeing lots of black people saying, this is why I leave the hood, this is why I don't come back. So how can we change the narrative and recycle those dollars back into our communities? And it's my understanding this used to be a black community where we're at, correct? Northeast? No? Oh, okay. I got my Portland community history off, so I won't go there, never mind.
To add to what Chris said, I think it starts with the message. When I look back into like hip hop in the cradle stages, when you had Grandmaster Flash and Furious 5, you know, they had this on the message where we were talking about the conditions of, you know, black people, and that was, you know, very conscious awareness during that time. It was very early, and then you fast forward to like, you know, later in the 80s, late 80s, you had X-Clan, you had Public Enemy. Even Ice Cube, he was speaking, you know, social, political, you know, stuff in the neighborhood, you know, talking about police brutality and just going ham on the police. But like Chris was saying, like, you know, when dollars started to get involved, and, you know, you can't necessarily make money or adequate money for the record companies with, you know, talking about social conscious stuff, and, you know, they're trying to find, you know, other avenues to like make money off these rappers. So it's like, well, let's glorify, you know, the conditions of, you know, black people. Let's talk about misogyny. Let's talk about killing one another and stuff. You know, those type of things were making money for rappers, and so they started to lose that conscientious rap and started going into more glorifying and you know, negative stuff that I guess was making money off the record companies. So I think if you change the message, you change the narrative, I think you'll start, you know, getting more people consciously aware of, like, you know, just trying to change the conditions, kind of like what Nipsey Hussle did. You know, he was, you know, speaking some, like, you know, real true stuff about, you know, going back into your hood, you know, and doing stuff for your community and, you know, trying to lift people up. And so I think once you change the narrative, change the message, I think that can have a lot of impact on the community.
The next question is actually still related to hip hop, so I'm going to go into it, and if anyone wants to add anything. The recent murder and death of Nipsey Hussle hit many by storm, specifically communities of color who have been impacted by murder, complicated grief, and unresolved trauma. For many, it appeared easier to credit Nipsey's death to the conspiracy theory that he was making a film on Dr. Sebi than to credit it to past and or current Crips gang affiliation or to a random hater. This requires introspection of the community at large, which is an examination or observation of one's own mental and emotional processes. What role are you playing in your own life and the lives of others to examine your emotional and mental processes to heal from trauma without being re-traumatized? It's quite a bit. I was trying to get it all in there.
Peace. I'll try. I'll try. So for my own life, how I examine myself is how I respond to these things now. Like even with the R. Kelly's, the Bill Cosby's, the unfortunate past murder of Nipsey Hussle, I see how the community responds, and it just saddens me because it takes for somebody with celebrity or somebody popular for us to like talk about and gather and then talk about what's going on in our lives every day. Like we've been under the foot of racism, white supremacy since we've been here, man. And it's global, and it takes like somebody to die for us to come together and be like, oh yeah, he was talking about all this good stuff, and then 13 hours later, Kanye will change his hair color, and we're talking about that. Or Cardi B will talk about who she humping, and we'll talk about that. So it just saddens me to the core, and that's where my emotional and mental health state goes to, is just deep sadness. It's not depression, it's anger. I'm tired of us. I'm seriously tired of us because we have so much evidence. We have empirical, real-life evidence of our conditions and what's happening to us, yet we don't have an urgency to change it. We have an urgency to seek money. The stuff that we're talking about, we always want to sell some shit, right? We have an urgency to do well, look good, and all of these things are fine. But I'm talking about as a collective, an urgency to see our people actually win, and not just you, and then you, collectively, as in like as many of us as possible, as many of us who is willing to stand on ourselves as black people. I don't see an urgency in that, and it saddens the hell out of me. That's where my emotional state goes.
Yeah.
One more one in this, or? I'm going to do one more question, and then we're going to open it up to the audience. Skip that one. So I don't know if any of you all seen the Steve Harvey meme that went viral where he was telling everyone that rich people don't sleep. Did anyone see that? Hands? No. Two, three people in here side. Well, it's all right. The next question kind of inspired that when I seen that. How can one be productive and positive in a racially oppressive... This is not the right one. Next. Next. Oh, there it is. Sorry. To be able to rest is to rejuvenate our spirits, center our healing, and remind us that we're not our productivity. Why is it so hard for Black communities to prioritize rest? And how can we incorporate rest and relaxation back into our lives and break this cycle that if we're not sleeping, we're attaining more wealth or we're more successful because we're not sleeping?
You know, I think what goes back to me is my father always said, you can sleep when you're dead. And he really has that mentality. My whole life, my father has always had 3 jobs. He has his day job, he has his night job, and then he always got some side hustle going, like selling flowers in the corner or something like that. And I think that we've learned along the way that that means that you are successful, right? That getting and gaining in commodities and the things that you're getting means that you're successful. And I know for even me, when I moved into my business, I had to check myself of like, why am I answering client emails at 2 a.m.? What does that demonstrate to them when I'm like, yes, I will be there at 9 a.m. tomorrow morning? And I think what happens, and I think in particular for me, I don't want to speak for everybody, is that I believe the more I have, the more that I'm seen, that means that I'm actually successful. But what happens is your life starts to fall apart. And especially as a clinician, as a therapist, we start to see clients and we're sitting in our office, and I know for me, I'll sit in my office and I'm like, what did they say? Like, I have gone somewhere else in my head, and I think that's that idea of I'm constantly thinking about the next thing, the next hustle, the next way I'm gonna make money, the next way I'm gonna get my name out there. And that produces this sense of anxiety and the sense of self-worth, that my self-worth is determined on how many people follow me on Instagram and how many people know about my business and how many clients I have and what my income was. And if I continue to think about those things, especially as somebody who owns their business, I never sleep. And I may be there and I may be laying in bed, but my head is constantly spinning. And I've had to learn, there are boundaries. There are times for work, there are times that I answer emails, but it absolutely goes against everything that I've ever learned from my father that says, you keep going, you keep hustling, because you never know when it's gonna dry up. You never know when the money is gonna stop, and I think that comes from that survivor mentality. Like, I have to survive. I never know. They're gonna catch on, the other shoe's gonna drop. And I think it really oftentimes is just based in that fear and that insecurity and that no sleep mentality. You can sleep in your bed. Steve Harvey's thing around like rich people never sleep. I think that's what keeps us sick, right? And I think as a therapist in particular, if I can't be okay, if I'm teaching to my clients, it's important that you practice self-care. And I've only slept 4 hours. I think what it does is it makes us think that we're different, right? My hustle's different because I got this. Your hustle you actually need sleep, but I don't. And so I think it's about ego. I think it's about survivor mentality. And I think we need communities and people in our lives to check us and to be like, hey, get off your phone. Stop emailing people. You matter. Our connection right now matters. And I think that if we don't have people in our lives to do that for us, we're all just going to be on this spinning wheel.
Yeah. And I'm going to add definitely to all of that, because, yeah, all of that goes down. And when it comes to, and I'm going to speak to a lot of the parents that I serve, and I'm going to speak for myself, but sleep is a luxury. It really is for a lot of the parents of the kids that need our services. It's a luxury. To live in Portland, they have to work 2 and 3 jobs to survive. There's not a lot of community support for a lot of our families. And when I mean like somebody that comes in like, hey sis, you know what, you done worked 36 hours these last couple days, whatever the case, I'm gonna come take your kids, or you need to get rest. Like, we need accountability from one another. We know everybody is out here grinding hard to survive, to provide for their kids, to just make ends meet, to keep a shelter over their head. And that's when we need those that are getting that good rest, that is enjoying some sleep, to check in. Or, hey, you know what? I noticed, I'm gonna go pick the kids up. Can I go to the PTA meeting? How can I support you? How can I help you? Because our kids are struggling and our parents are struggling too, and they're doing the very best that they can with what they have. And unfortunately, sleep is always the first thing to get cut, especially if you do try to be an all-around parent. You want to be at your kids' PTA meetings, you want to show up to their school events, and you also still have to work, and you want to still show up for your community or show up for your friends. It's exhausting. But I do say, sleep is extremely important, and I speak for myself as a person who used to be like, okay, as long as I can operate, I just need to get 5 hours. 5 hours. If I get 5 hours, then I'm good, but I'm not good. I'm not functioning at my optimal self when I'm not rested, and that leads to hypertension issues that I deal with. So for me, rest is important, and now that I'm starting to set healthier sleep patterns, and knowing that it's okay to tell my clients, no, I'm not available at this hour. Or it's okay for me to say, hey, Hubs, I need you to take the kids. I'm going to bed. Or getting everybody on a routine. Because sleep impacts everything. I know we don't really examine what sleep does when we just think of, hey, it's just something, we do. We just grind. But if you're not well rested, trust and believe. If you look throughout your day, you can find some errors that were made or some things that you could have done differently or better had you been well rested. So definitely, my people, you get sleep where you can. I know adult naps are the business. Get them where you can, 30 minutes, recoup, relax, phone a friend. I'm not a stranger to calling anybody, like, you know, I just need an hour. Like, can I just get an hour? And luckily, that's how I do it. I lean on my little small community of support of folks that I can call when I do need that. So I think that also, you gotta build up who's around you.
United States. So if finances are an issue, definitely go to openpathcollective.org, and there's a number of therapists listed on there who just charge $30 to $50. And so I make my service accessible, one, by being on that. Sometimes I offer complimentary sessions, but we also have to realize this is a business. There was a lot of work that was put into becoming a therapist, a lot of money. I went to one of the most expensive schools, University of Washington, one of the top schools in my field that cost $100,000. So this is a business, and we have to invest in our health. We pay for physical therapists, we can pay for mental health therapists. But I also understand that there are those who literally don't have the funds, and my heart goes out to that community. I've been a member of that community, so that's definitely why I'll offer my services at no cost. But it's no cost to my clients, it still costs me because I still have office space and overhead because, see, it's a business. But there's also community health organizations that I also partner with, and I'll go to and I'll do group therapy because I know these agencies where I live in Washington don't have Black mental health therapists. I partner with POCAN, which actually offers services to homeless individuals, so they can't even afford the $30. So I provide services through POCAN to them, out of pocket, no cost, so free services. But we have to change our mindset. So if we do have the money, you can spend $200 in a week. You can invest in your health and pay for some mental health services. You can spend $200 on some Jordans. Do you want to live longer? Or do you want to die early? You can be on my hospice caseload. It's constantly trickling.
I think for me in particular, this was a big concern when I went into full-time private practice, right? I make my money for clients showing up to session. And I have an expectation in my head of, right, what therapy costs, because I think even as therapists on this panel, we struggle with the same thing. Of like, we have to pay our own therapists, right? And our therapists are twice as much as I am because they're like, hey, you're real messed up because you see people all day. So we pay them a lot. But I think that we each have kind of our own ways. For me, what I do is I offer sliding scale. I offer 5 spots. 5 spots, any client can get sliding scale. My only requirement is that you ask. You have to ask that this is what you want. And I also have a waiting list for my sliding scale clients. I also believe that therapy traditionally in our heads is every week I show up, that means that every week I have to pay this fee, right? And for a lot of us, even for me, I don't have that in my budget. So what I offer to my clients is we can do check-ins, which are about 1/3 of the cost, but also you can do drive-bys. Like you can just go on my portal, you can sign up and say like, hey, I ended up with a little bit of money, I gotta talk to you real quick, I wanna schedule a session, but that doesn't mean you have to come weekly. And I think that's where we get bogged down oftentimes as I get emails, it's like, I really wanna come to therapy, but I can't afford you monthly. Just one time a month. I can give you some skills, I can give you some tools, you can check in with me, but it's a one-time thing. It doesn't have to be every week and you're spending your rent coming to therapy, right? It can be once a month I see you, or you can use a sliding scale spot. So I think it's about having creative alternatives, that it doesn't have to be this traditional way that we do that. I think another option is always group therapy. And then I always tell people, if therapy isn't an option, there's community-based programs. There's places like Central City Concern that you can go to. There's treatment centers like Crestview that you can go to. There are other places that you maybe won't get that one-on-one attention, and it would be in a group setting. But I think we have to get a little creative because some of us can't afford therapists. So I think it's just a reality.
I know I'm a therapist, but I contract with the company. I know the company that I contract with accepts OHP, and they have sliding scale as well. Also, you know, I I have my own website, you know, and you know, I answer emails, I answer any kind of way you want to communicate. You know what I'm saying? Like you know, like she said, you know, quick check-in. You know, like I'm really just here to help. You know what I'm saying? Like I can do what I can. You know what I'm saying? But if you don't reach out, then I won't know. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, you know, so if you go to my website, hiphopsocialworker.com. You know, and you can send me an email. You know, so you can hit me up on, you know, like on Facebook, on Instagram, or whatever, and I'm more than happy to, you know, just to, you know, to help you find resources or be a resource, you know.
I get creative because in my private practice, I don't accept insurances yet. I hopefully will soon. But when it comes to, I will say I have, all my clients are Black and they're paying out of pocket. So I know our community wants the service and they find ways. They find ways to get the money, whether they Uber just a little bit, just to make that session. They find a way when it's something that you feel like is important or something you feel like you need. And as far as those, I also offer a sliding scale. So if people cannot afford the full rate, you know, anybody can have the sliding scale fee. But I also partner up with different community organizations that I know serve our communities and those who may not be insured, as well as those who might be insured, but they don't have any African American therapists at the facilities where they go to. So I do business with SEI, or POIC, and now Horizon Counseling Services. So I could be in the school districts and I can meet our kids, and the cost is not coming from them or the parents. It's whether it's Portland Public School or whether it's SEI or the organization. So that's the way I try to counter and hit those that normally would not be able to afford my services or don't have insurance or things like that, is I look at who I can partner with so that they can still get the services they need and it's no cost to them.
And all of their information is in the program booklet, as well as a lot of the resources that she mentioned. I see another hand for a question. Want to get one of these mics?
So, can you hear me? Yeah, okay. So, I do believe that encouraging our Black community to seek our health and medical, but I also see it as a two-edged sword. I see you folks as Black therapists, of which you are an extreme minority in the mental health field, looking out for our good. The pharmaceutical industry is looking out for their good, and we now have our Black boys 8 times more drugged and defying the schizophrenia as a way of solving the mental health problem. We have foster children that the NAACP declared it was a major crisis in the community, that our Black children are being psychiatrized with medication to off the limits and off the track. And in our schools, they have made it so that a parent and the school can get more funding if the mental health diagnosis is a psychiatric disease. So the question is, how do you help the Black community navigate between what is really needed for that child when the financial piece of it is so strongly geared towards drugging our children?
Thank you for that question. So for me, there's 2 folds for that because I wear 2 different hats. I'm a hospice therapist and I also own my own private practice. So in hospice, I actually see the results of that over-medication and how it's actually leading to an untimely death. I've had several clients who were actually given chemotherapy and other drugs and they never actually had cancer, other things. So me, one, I'm a master's level therapist, so I can't even prescribe medication for one, so I'm all about non-drug interventions, and I'm really big on advocating for my patients, especially my hospice patients, because at that point they feel like you're dying, you have 6 months or less to live, take whatever drugs, and there's money in the medication. So we're gonna prescribe you and we're gonna give you morphine, or we're gonna give you this drug just so you can be comfortable. Meanwhile, you can still survive. Just because you have a hospice diagnosis doesn't necessarily mean you're going to end your life in 6 months. But the way that the healthcare system is designed, we want to over-medicate you because we can get billed more money. So me, I'm always asking, what is the purpose? Why are we giving that patient morphine? Why are we already giving them all of these hard drugs that they don't need? They're already saying they're comfortable, but we get billed more. So me, I am their voice. So I advocate for them. I'm always asking why are they on certain medications. My clients, one, like I said, I can't even prescribe them, so it's teaching them things that they can do to avoid medication. And when I have clients who come to me who are already on antipsychotics, the goal is to get them off. I'm not saying stop taking your medications, because medications do work, they're useful, but I also know that there are herbs and things of this earth that do the very exact same thing those drugs do, but you get paid more for the drugs.
Queen Mother, if I can answer your question. What you're referring to is way deeper than mental health. What you're referring to is a direct attack on our black bodies, directly. Because any research you do, you will see that little black boys in particular are overdiagnosed, over-medicated, and at a younger age, period, across the board. And if you look at history even closer, you will see that we fluctuated in between about 12% and 13.5% of the population forever. Everybody else is gaining. It is a direct attack, and it's not just education, it's mental health, it's law, it's all of it. And unless and until we find the urgency to have our own, there is nothing we can do. They will keep on diagnosing them because it's their system, and they have the control over it. And whenever we do something and go into the school boards and cry and complain, they just switch. Okay, we'll just switch this and you shut up again. Or we'll just elect some nice little black woman and you'll be happy and nothing will change. See, but this is reality that we run from. We keep running from this reality. It's called insanity. Like seriously, collectively, we suffer from cultural insanity. It's really sick. If y'all really want to have a real mental health conversation, we could just talk about our collective insanity as black people here in America. Seriously, because we see these things and we can have this conversation and we'll leave here and have no plan on actually building our own school. None, right? So until we get serious about stuff like that, ain't nothing we can do. That's the truth.
I'm a piggyback off of Moja because he's definitely speaking the truth on that. And I try to educate my parents and let them know now insurance is a double-edged sword. So for the longest when I first started my private practice, I didn't want to be on insurance panels. Because from working in community mental health, I learned how insurance forces your hand, how insurance require a billable diagnosis to pay for treatment. So if you coming in and you just having a small life adjustment, no, they're not gonna pay for that. But if you have anxiety, if you have depression, PTSD, you could get extended services. So by learning the inner workings, I learned how the system sets us up from the beginning if you need services, because you have to have this diagnosis that will follow you. And that's something I'd let my parents know, is that if we use insurance, just know that this will create that pathway of a diagnosis that will follow your child. Versus when you're paying out of pocket, it's not mandatory or required that you have a diagnosis, because a diagnosis only serves the purpose of billing purposes. Other than that, it's just information. We already know the symptoms that you're experiencing. Why do we need to categorize that? So when it comes to that, it is a double-edged sword, and I see it countless times over again, and especially when it comes to prescribing a medication and putting our kids on medications, especially when in the school systems. It's about making your kid more tolerable for the teacher or for the environment. Because a lot of our kids that's getting diagnosed with ADHD and ADD, no, they're not carrying those diagnoses. Some of them are just dysregulated from their conditions from the time they got up to the time they got to school. Who's taking the time to regulate our kids when they get to the school so that they can be in learning brain? It's not happening. It's not happening, so it's easier to send them to the school counselor or send them to a psychiatrist, get them put on some medication that will make them more teachable or more cooperative. But those are also things that you can do without medication. It just takes a lot of care, compassion, and some behavioral techniques. But a lot of us don't have the time. I know our school system is stretched. Our teachers are stretched. It doesn't have time. So that question is a deep one, and it is one that I feel you. It's a problem that we're not going to solve for a very long time, because a lot of systemic change has to happen and a lot of policies have to change. But we can change it on a small scale of starting with whoever the kids like that I'm showing up and advocating for, and then connecting them with different organizations that will speak up and say, hey, why are we giving this kid this med? Can we try this first? Or ensuring that we exhaust all other options before just medicating them, because some kids get medicated and it disrupts them. They don't feel the same. They know that they have lost a piece of themselves, that a piece of them has been dumbed down. And that's one thing that saddens me when I see kids lose their zest for life, that energy that they naturally have, and they may require redirection or to learn differently than others. That hurts hard. So it's a greater, bigger problem that it's going to take some years to fix.
So I work in the education systems and I work with staff all over the city, and a lot of them ask me to refer them out to different mental health therapists, and are looking for Black therapists essentially. And I get directed to Psychology Today, but when I type in like Black therapists in there, I get all types of stuff. And there's just a mythology that there isn't Black therapists out there, which clearly this is not the case. So, first question is there one website out there, especially locally, that has all y'all in there together and the different things that you guys offer?
So there is a website called C4PDX, Clinicians of Color, and right now I created C4PDX when I started my private practice. C4 stands for Clinicians of Color, Clinicians in Community of Color, because I went into private practice and I had all of these people, Black and brown people, reaching out to me, and I didn't have enough services to give to them. And they were asking me for Black male therapists, or people who specialize in trauma, or people who specialize in grief, and those are a little out of my box. And so I created C4PDX, which has different Black therapists on there. It gives you their email, gives you their phone number, gives a little bio and a photo. Chris is a part of it, and it takes you to his podcast. There are some really good clinicians who've been in the field for 20 years, and then there are some people who are like straight out of graduate school who have private practice. Some people take sliding scale, other people take insurance. There is not one hub for Portland Black therapists that I know of. Do you know what one?
We're putting one together right now at pdxasc.org. Do you want let him finish?
Do you want to say what it's called? Just because that's answering the question.
My organization is called PDX Alliance for Self-Care, and right now we're putting together a resource page for all sorts of Black, Indigenous, POC practitioners, mental health, hairstylists, self-care practitioners, everything that we can find. I call everything that I see from all the Black Facebook groups and listservs that I'm on. And if you have information, please send it to Mia at pdxasc.org, or info, actually it's probably easier, info at pdxasc.org. We'll put you on our page, but we're trying to get as much information as we can, and also any volunteer practitioners, people who want to donate their services on a sliding scale, you can also reach out to us because we're putting together a database to connect people who need services.
And the C4 PDX is in the program booklet. I believe it's the last page of resources. And again, all the therapists.
And I'm sorry, the last question was, I know Anami has like mental health first aid trainings, and especially for parents and families coming in, but are there any trainings that the Black community puts on for families so that we can reach more folks and just develop more of a culture of self-care?
Yes. We're working on all of it.
So make sure you connect with her, and you have a pillar in your community, Dr. Joy DeGrew, who wrote Post-Traumatic Slave Syndrome, and her daughter, Bahia Overton, she has a program that works with the youth. Also, one of our poets, she's on the program, but she wasn't able to make it here today, Renee Mitchell. She has a program called Speak More, I believe. Her information's in the program. You didn't see her because she couldn't make it here today. But she works with the youth. Amani in the back, one of our vendors, she has a group with the youth. I believe your information's in the program booklet. So connect with her. Your community is here. That's why I do this, so I can connect you with the resources and your local community. Look at the booklets. I put a lot of time and effort into creating them, so all the information's in them. And so that's what we're gonna do the raffles just for time and everything. Raise your hand if you're gonna be able to stay for the toxic masculinity. I just wanna see if anyone's even staying. Okay, I'm seeing hands. We'll get cozy. We'll take a break, get some snacks. I'm gonna do the raffles, and I really want to thank our panelists for being here today and taking time out of their day. Mother's Day weekend, they're probably gonna be with their mamas. Wives, girlfriends, I don't know. You are a mama, and you're here with us.